Number 13, 2022.
911 location of your emergency.
Something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
What if I told you that on a quiet November night in a college town, 4 lives were stolen in complete silence, while 2 others slept just feet away, unaware that their world had changed forever? What if the answers we thought we had only led to deeper questions about memory, time, and the weight of words left unspoken? Before we go further into this case, if you're drawn to stories that don't just report facts, but explore the human moments within them, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for Dark Trail Files. We don't sensationalize. We don't speculate. We examine the spaces between what happened and what it means. Because some stories demand more than headlines. They demand your full attention. Now let's begin. Moscow, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. A Sunday morning that started like any other for most of the town. A college community waking up to the tail end of weekend routines. Coffee brewing. Students sleeping in after Saturday night gatherings. The kind of ordinary that feels permanent until it isn't. But for one house on King Road, that morning would mark the moment everything ordinary ended. And the first sound of that ending wasn't screaming. It wasn't chaos. It was confusion, hesitation, and the human voice trying to make sense of the impossible. The first people to know something was wrong weren't investigators or first responders. They were friends who arrived at a home where silence had replaced the noise of college life. What they found led to a call that would echo far beyond that single morning.
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the light, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi,
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone, stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, but we gotta go check. But we have to. Is it passed out? What's wrong? She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, me too. What's wrong?
Okay, and how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20 years old.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Hey, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
No.
Okay.
Please talk to them, okay? I can't talk to them. They need you to talk to them.
Hello.
Okay. I've already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
Say that again? There's a police here right now.
Okay. If there's a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have it. Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, we have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
11:59 a.m.
Listen carefully to what you just heard. Not just the words, but the pauses between them. The confusion. The incomplete sentences. The way voices overlap because no one quite knows how to say what they're seeing. The human brain trying to process something it has no framework for. That call wasn't made with full understanding. It was made in the space between normalcy and horror, where reality hasn't fully formed yet, where the mind is still reaching for explanations that make sense. Notice the hesitation before certain words are spoken. The way information comes in fragments rather than complete thoughts. This is what trauma sounds like in its first moments, before it has language, before it has settled into something the mind can hold. For students, Kaylee Goncalves, 21. Madison Mogan, 21. Xana Kernadal, 20. Ethan Chapin, 20. All gone. And two survivors, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, would carry the weight of that morning for the rest of their lives. The house itself became a character in this story. 1122 King Road, a rental property near the University of Idaho campus. 3 floors, 6 bedrooms, the kind of place where college students build temporary homes, share meals, create memories that are supposed to last a lifetime in the best possible way. A layout that would later raise countless questions about sound, movement, and the thin walls between safety and tragedy. The victims were found on the 2nd and 3rd floors. The survivors had been on the 1st floor, separated by space that felt simultaneously too close and impossibly far. Initial reports were careful, measured. Law enforcement spoke in the language of ongoing investigations, confirming facts while withholding details. But the details that emerged painted a picture that defied easy explanation. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaotic. This was targeted, methodical, and executed with a precision that made its brutality even more chilling. The medical examiner would later confirm that all 4 victims were stabbed multiple times. Some showed defensive wounds, evidence of their final moments fighting for survival. The weapon was consistent across all victims, a fixed-blade knife, likely a K-bar style blade, though it was never recovered from the scene. The coroner stated that some victims had been awakened by the attack, while others likely died in their sleep. Each detail added weight to an already unbearable picture. But here's what haunted investigators from the beginning: the silence. In a house where 6 people slept, 4 were killed, and 2 remained unaware until morning. How does that happen? What does that say about the nature of the attack, the layout of the home, or the capacity of the human mind to protect itself through denial when faced with sounds it cannot contextualize? This question would become central not just to the investigation, but to how the public understood and sometimes unfairly judged the survivors. While Moscow reeled and investigators worked 20-hour days processing one of the most complex crime scenes Idaho had ever seen, life continued in strange parallel. Students returned home for Thanksgiving. Some never came back. Parents who had sent their children to a small college town, believing it was safe, now questioned everything. The university struggled with how to move forward while honoring those who couldn't. The investigation moved quickly but carefully. The Moscow Police Department, a force of roughly 40 officers in a town of 25,000, suddenly found itself managing a quadruple homicide that would draw national and international attention. They called in reinforcements. The Idaho State Police, the FBI, dozens of investigators combing through digital evidence, physical evidence, witness statements, and the overwhelming flood of tips that poured in from across the country. Early on, there was a white Hyundai Elantra. Security footage showed it near the King Roadhouse in the early morning hours of November 13th. Investigators released images asking the public for help identifying the vehicle. They received thousands of tips, and somewhere in that mountain of information was the thread that would eventually lead them to their suspect. And somewhere in that same timeline, routine moments were unfolding that would later carry impossible weight. Less than a month after the murders, as the investigation intensified and a nation watched Moscow, Idaho, a routine traffic stop occurred. It seemed meaningless at the time. Father and son, minor violation, polite exchange. But context changes everything.
I am Officer Loangus. Stops being audio and video recorded. I think you know why I stopped you. You ran the red light.
What actually happened was I was stuck in the middle of the intersection.
Yeah,
so I was
behind you the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically you're not supposed to enter the intersection at all for that reason, because if the light turns red, then you're stuck in the intersection, and then you run the red light. So that's the reason I stopped you. Do you have your license on you?
Yep. Let me just get this for you out.
You what?
I'm just going to get this out for you.
Okay.
Would you explain that to me a little bit further? So in Pennsylvania, when you're stuck like in the intersection, you have to make the left. So what would the appropriate thing for me to have done?
You're not supposed to block an intersection like that in Washington, so just by you blocking the intersection, that's technically a ticketable violation, and then you're running a red light, so it's another ticketable offense. So you're not supposed to proceed into the intersection until you can go, because a lot of people do what you just did, right? It's like you're sitting in the intersection waiting, and then turns, and then you're blocking, so.
Yeah, there's a little bit of confusion with speeding, because someone had stopped. I wasn't sure what they were doing, and then they put on their light to turn. Mm-hmm. So I thought that maybe they were letting me go through. Oh. Did you see that?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, like right before I made the turn, there was someone who made a right. They didn't have their signal on, so I wasn't sure if they were just waiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I would just advise just don't enter the intersection until you can go, so you don't get stuck. Let's see.
But in that situation, the best thing to do then would be back up. And not.
I don't know if there's a best thing to do in that situation, because you're either going to back up into somebody, or you're going to run a red light. So, or you'll be sitting in an intersection. There's not really a great option there.
Yeah, I was just into the crosswalk, so where I'm from Pennsylvania, we actually don't have like crosswalks.
Oh.
So even if you're kind of slightly, there's a little bit more leeway as well. Like there are a few lines. Like there's one white line and there's another one. Like there's like a certain margin from which you can actually kind of put your vehicle, place your vehicle.
Yeah, so I know laws vary state to state, but there is a law in Washington for blocking an intersection like that, proceeding through, and you don't, when you're just stalling. I forget the actual verbiage, I can find it for you, but it's like stalling, blocking an intersection.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the law. I don't mean to...
Oh, no, yeah, I can find it for you. Yeah. One second. That looks good on a Hyundai. I don't see Pennsylvania registration like at all. Okay, let's see. Okay. So I'm not writing a ticket or anything like that today. I understand you're from Pennsylvania, but in the future, don't proceed through the intersection. You can't get stopped for that alone unless you can clearly just clear it right away. So
then basically, I understand.
You're just supposed to wait behind the white line. Drivers do it all the time, but
it never even occurred to me that was actually something wrong. But well, except for the fact that I was blocking the crosswalk, which is what I went through.
And states vary from laws. Like Pennsylvania might not even have that law, but in Washington we do.
I'm actually just from a very rural area, so we just don't have crosswalks.
Oh.
Unless I visit an area where there are crosswalks, and then it's not very frequent.
Yeah.
I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law. I wasn't trying to
No, not at all. Like I understand you're not from here, so if you don't, a lot of people don't know a bunch of laws. Like I only know it because this is what I do, but yeah. If you're ever curious on any more laws, just RCW, and they can be hard to read because it's in like legal language, but hope that helps.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hello. How y'all doing? Good. Take your driver's license real quick if I could. See, he's right up on the van, man. He's right up on the back of that van. You're over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay. Cool. Where you headed?
Well, we come from WSU, and
what's WSU?
University, basically. That is SWAT team area.
So I'm having a hard time reading because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going there? Oh.
We're going to be going to Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
We're flying to mention to drive hours.
Hours, days.
Drive.
Okay.
Did you notice the ordinariness of it? The small talk about the drive, the compliance, the casual nature of the interaction, the have a good day at the end. This is what's so unsettling about moments like these. They don't announce themselves. They don't carry visible weight. Bryan Kohberger and his father stopped for a minor traffic violation while driving cross-country from Washington State to Pennsylvania. Just another moment in the thousands of traffic stops that happen every day across America. Except it wasn't, because by the time that traffic stop happened, investigators had already begun to zero in on a suspect. Digital forensics had identified a white Hyundai Elantra near the King Roadhouse multiple times before the murders and again shortly after. Cell phone data showed a device repeatedly pinging towers near the victim's home at unusual hours, including at least 12 separate occasions prior to November 13th. In genetic genealogy, the same technique that had caught the Golden State Killer was narrowing the field through DNA evidence recovered from the crime scene. The suspect they were building a case against was a 28-year-old PhD student in criminology at Washington State University, just 15 minutes across the state line in Pullman, Washington. Bryan Kohberger, a graduate student studying the very thing he was suspected of committing. A teaching assistant who had access to research on criminal behavior, investigative techniques, and the psychology of violence. And while he drove across the country with his father, unaware that law enforcement in Pennsylvania was preparing to make an arrest, that body cam footage captured something we rarely see. The last moments before everything changes. The last time he would drive freely. The last conversation as someone not formally accused. The last ordinary interaction before becoming the subject of one of the most scrutinized cases in modern true crime history. On December 30th, 2022, at approximately 1:15 a.m., the Pennsylvania State Police SWAT team executed a warrant at Kohberger's family home in Albrightsville. Bryan Kohberger was taken into custody without incident. Inside his parents' home, investigators would later recover critical evidence, including personal items that would become central to the prosecution's case. The arrest came 47 days after the murders, 47 days during which families waited, a community held its breath, and investigators worked with the pressure of the world watching. The extradition from Pennsylvania to Idaho took days. During that time, the world learned details that seemed almost too perfect for the narrative people wanted. A criminology student, someone who had allegedly sent questionnaires to convicted criminals asking about their emotions during crimes. Someone who, according to former classmates, had exhibited behavior that made others uncomfortable. But narratives built from hindsight are dangerous. They allow us to retrofit normalcy into warning signs, to see patterns that may not have existed until we knew where to look. When Bryan Kohberger appeared in an Idaho courtroom for the first time, the world was watching. Not just Moscow, not just Idaho, but millions of people trying to reconcile the person they saw with the accusations he faced. This was the first time most would see him not as a mugshot or a name, but as a human being standing in the machinery of justice.
Oh, we got him. We took care of it. You guys.
$50,000 fine or both. Do you understand?
Yes.
Count 2 alleges that you committed the felony offense of murder in the first degree. It alleges that the defendant, Bryan C. Kohberger, on or about November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogen, from which she died, in violation of Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. The maximum penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life.
Look at that moment. The orange jumpsuit, the chains, the face that's been analyzed in countless frames, frozen and dissected for any hint of emotion, remorse, or defiance. But what are we really seeing? A person becoming a symbol. Privacy dissolving into public property. The transformation from individual to subject of global scrutiny. He was formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. He stood mostly silent, speaking only when directly addressed. His public defender entered a not guilty plea on his behalf. And just like that, the machinery began to turn. What followed were months of legal maneuvering. The defense requested to have cameras removed from court proceedings, citing concerns about fair trial rights. The prosecution pushed for the death penalty. Evidence was sealed, then partially unsealed. A protective order was issued limiting what could be shared publicly. And through it all, families waited. Because for them, this wasn't a case. It wasn't a headline. It was their children, frozen in time at 20 and 21, while the world debated procedures and precedents. One of the most difficult aspects of this case, one that generated enormous public speculation and, at times, unfair scrutiny, was the question of what the survivors knew and when they knew it. Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen became subjects of intense interest, their actions analyzed and questioned by people who had never experienced trauma and had no framework for understanding its effects on memory and decision-making. In the weeks following the murders, before any arrests were made, theories proliferated online. Why didn't they call 911 immediately? What did they hear? What did they see? The questions came from a place of confusion, from people trying to make sense of something senseless, but they evolved into something darker. Judgment, suspicion, and in some cases, outright accusation directed at young women who had survived something unthinkable. The truth, as revealed in the probable cause affidavit and later court proceedings, was more complex and more human than the neat narratives people wanted. Dylan Mortensen had described hearing sounds that night. Crying, a male voice, movement, and she had seen someone, a figure dressed in black, walking toward her and then past her, leaving through the sliding glass door. She described being frozen in fear, a response that neuroscience now understands is as valid as fight or flight. The freeze response is the brain's way of protecting us when fighting or fleeing aren't options, when the threat is so overwhelming that stillness becomes survival. When investigators interviewed Bethany Funk, they weren't just collecting facts. They were asking someone to reconstruct a night that her mind was actively trying to protect her from. Trauma doesn't create clean narratives. It creates fragments, gaps, and contradictions that can look like inconsistencies to those who don't understand how the brain processes the unprocessable.
She just knocked on my door, I think, during and asked if I had my keys, and
Okay. Then what happened after that?
I just went to bed, and then I woke up and I was like half asleep, and I thought I saw like a firework or something, like it just sparkled like under my door, and then I thought I heard like some type of dog, and then Murphy barked, but I thought people were just making like food, like and Ethan was here or something and knocked something over because he's usually loud in the kitchen upstairs.
Okay. So what do you mean by you heard a firework?
It sounded like a little firework, and then there was like a spark. I went by my I'm on the bottom floor.
Okay.
So it kind of looked like it came down there, but I don't know.
So is Murphy your dog?
Kaylee's dog.
Kaylee's dog?
Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend.
Okay. So you heard Murphy bark right after you heard what you thought was a firecracker?
But yeah, something like that. Like, I don't know, dogs bark at random things. And sometimes when he's happy, he'll bark.
Okay. It didn't sound like an angry growl or anything like that, just a bark?
I don't really know. I was like half asleep.
Okay.
I just sounded like bark.
So, hear the firework, and I see a spark underneath the door. Murphy barks. What'd you hear after that?
Pretty much nothing. That's it.
Okay. And you thought maybe someone was just in the kitchen at that point?
Yeah, just like someone accidentally fell into the table or something.
Okay.
And she was like, this would be...
Do you know about what time that might have been? Do you have any idea?
4 or something. I tried to call all of them at like 4:20ish. Around that time, and no one was answering. I thought they just went to bed or something.
Okay. What happened after that?
Called me, and she said she thinks she saw someone. And I didn't know, like, really what to think of it, because sometimes we think we hear things a lot in the house, but it's usually just Ethan walking around. But she came, I told her to come in my room, and she could sleep with me, and we could lock the door, and just stay in there just in case if there was anything, and that's all I knew. I fell back asleep.
Didn't hear anything else?
Mm-hmm.
No one else talking? Okay. Did you get to your room then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What time do you think she got in your room?
Around like 4:20, 4:30.
Okay, about the same time.
Yeah.
Where's her room located to yours?
I'm the only one on the bottom floor, right by the front door.
Okay.
And then you go up the stairs, and Santa's room, and this room, the kitchen, and then upstairs is mine and Kim's.
Okay. And where's the room?
Right by the kitchen.
Right by the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did she say anything to you when she got into the room?
She said she thought she saw a man, but I didn't know what to think of it. I was like still half asleep, and I was like, I didn't know what to, I don't know. Okay. It didn't sound like I didn't hear screams, I didn't hear anything, so I didn't really know.
Okay. Okay. But notice she didn't say anything more than she just saw someone.
No, that's all I remembered.
Notice the difficulty in that conversation, the pauses, the uncertainty, the visible strain of trying to access memories that exist in fragments. The way trauma fractures linear time and turns memory into something unreliable and painful to access. Bethany was on the first floor of the house that night. She heard sounds. She, like Dylan, would later describe hearing what they thought might have been their housemates, not recognizing the sounds as what they actually were. And here's what makes this so important to understand. The sounds of violence don't always announce themselves as violence. In a house where people come and go, where parties happen, where someone dropping something or moving furniture or having an argument are all within the realm of normal, the brain defaults to normal explanations. It's not denial in the conscious sense. It's the brain doing what it's designed to do. Conserve energy by using the most likely explanation rather than jumping to the most catastrophic one. This is where we have to pause and ask ourselves something uncomfortable. What would you have done in a college house where noise is constant, where people come and go at all hours, where your brain has been trained to filter out sounds as normal? Would you have immediately recognized danger? Or would you, like most of us, have created a harmless explanation and gone back to sleep? Would you have investigated every sound? Or would you have trusted that if something was truly wrong, someone would have called for help? The human brain is designed to protect us. And sometimes that protection comes through denial, through creating narratives that allow us to stay in our safe reality a little longer. Neither Bethany nor Dylan called 911 until the next morning. And for that, they faced public judgment from people who couldn't possibly understand the weight of that decision. But think about what they were up against. They were young women, living in what they believed was a safe space, experiencing sounds that their brains had no framework to interpret as life-threatening. The freeze response kept them safe that night, kept them quiet, and out of the path of whatever was happening upstairs. And the next morning, when they called friends to the house, and those friends called 911, they were making the best decision they could with the information their traumatized minds could access. The investigators who interviewed them understood this. Law enforcement quickly cleared both survivors of any involvement, recognizing them for what they were, victims who had survived by chance, who now had to live with questions that would haunt them forever. What if they had called sooner? What if they had checked on their housemates? What if? These are the questions that trauma survivors carry, the endless loop of hypotheticals that no answer can satisfy. After the initial court appearance, the case entered a phase that most people don't see in true crime documentaries because it's not dramatic. It's procedural. It's slow. It's the grinding machinery of justice moving at a pace that feels glacial to those waiting for answers. But this slowness matters. It tells us something about the nature of justice, about the tension between the human need for swift resolution and the legal system's requirement for thoroughness. Every motion filed, every hearing held, every piece of evidence examined is part of building a case that will withstand scrutiny, that will hold up on appeal, that will ensure that whatever verdict is reached is legally sound. Status hearings became regular occurrences, brief courtroom appearances where very little seemed to happen, but everything was building towards something larger. These moments don't make headlines, but they represent something crucial. The slow, careful construction of a case that will determine whether justice is served or whether technical errors could undermine years of work.
All right, good morning. We are on the record. 29222805. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger is in custody. He is appearing here in court with his attorneys, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logsdon, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings appearing on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for the preliminary hearing status conference. So I am going to inquire of counsel. Ms. Taylor, what's the status at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Taylor reached out to us by email yesterday with her proposal. On reflection, the state's calendar would be better in the month of July, but we will make the end of June work if that's the court's preference. And I haven't had a chance to talk with Ms. Taylor about that. I'm sorry, I know that's last minute.
That's okay. The court's calendar is going to be better towards the end of June, early July. So would that work, Ms. Taylor, for your scheduling on your other matters?
Your Honor, yes. If we take that fourth week in June, that's actually best.
Okay. So, Mr. Kohberger, I need to speak to you for a moment then. Sir, you do understand, and Ms. beginning Monday, June 26th at 9:00 a.m. And I will go ahead and reserve the week, so June 26th to June 30th, in the event that we need all 5 days for presentation of evidence. And just so counsel knows, it will begin at 9 a.m. each of those days. Is there anything further to address at this time in the case, Mr. Thompson?
Not from the state's perspective, Your Honor, no.
All right. Or Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kohberger, then you will be remanded into custody on your same no bail at this point in time, pending further proceedings. Again, we'll send notice out to counsel, and we will be in recess for this morning.
Thank you.
These hearings discuss timelines, evidence disclosure, motion deadlines, and trial dates that would shift multiple times. The defense fought for access to certain evidence, arguing that without full discovery, they couldn't adequately prepare for trial. The prosecution worked to build an airtight case while protecting certain investigative methods and sources. And families sat in courtrooms watching procedures unfold, knowing that every delay extended their pain, but also understanding that thoroughness was necessary. The legal battles became increasingly complex. The defense challenged the genetic genealogy methods used to identify Kohberger, arguing about privacy implications and the admissibility of such evidence. They sought to suppress evidence obtained from searches of his apartment, his car, his parents' home. Each motion required responses, hearings, rulings. Each ruling could potentially be appealed. There were battles over what the jury would be allowed to hear. Would they learn about the cell phone data showing Kohberger's device near the house on multiple occasions before the murders? Would they see the surveillance footage of his car? Would they hear about the DNA evidence? And if so, how would it be explained? These weren't abstract legal questions. They were the difference between conviction and acquittal, between accountability and doubt. Months became a year. A year became longer. The trial date was pushed from October 2023 to summer 2024, then pushed again. Each delay had reasons. The complexity of the evidence, the need for additional DNA analysis, scheduling conflicts, motions that needed resolution before trial could begin. But for families, each delay was another stretch of time where grief couldn't settle, where closure remained out of reach, where they existed in a liminal space between tragedy and resolution. The public's attention waned and surged with each new development. When court hearings happened, interest spiked. During the long gaps between proceedings, the case faded from headlines only to return when new motions were filed or new evidence was disclosed. The case became a fixture in true crime communities, analyzed and debated, sometimes with more speculation than fact. Theories multiplied. Online sleuths created elaborate timelines and theories that often bore little resemblance to the actual evidence. And in Moscow, the house on King Road stood empty, a physical reminder that some places become permanently marked by what happened within them. The university eventually acquired the property with plans to demolish it, understanding that it could never again be just a house. It was a memorial, a crime scene, a symbol. Its presence was too painful for the families who had to see it standing there, unchanged on the outside, while everything inside had changed forever. Then came the sentencing hearing. Though the path there was complicated by legal proceedings that are still unfolding as of this recording. What matters for our purposes are the impact statements, the moments when families were given space to speak directly about what was taken from them. In the American justice system, victim impact statements serve a specific purpose. They humanize the victims, give families a voice in the process, and allow the court to understand the full scope of harm caused by the crime. But they're more than a legal formality. There is sacred space where grief can be spoken aloud, where the dead can be remembered by those who love them, where justice becomes personal rather than procedural. Impact statements are often treated as courtroom formalities, brief moments before sentencing occurs. But there's something more than that. They're an act of reclamation. A chance for families to ensure that their loved ones are remembered as people, not just victims. To speak names that will be heard. To share memories that will be recorded. These weren't just statements. They were declarations that love continues even when life doesn't.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be speaking on behalf of Bethany, and so, yeah, here it reads. My name is Bethany Funk, and I was roommates with Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. I not only lost some of my best friends, but I also lost a sister. Never in a million years would I have thought that something like this would have happened to my closest friends. I thought that we were going to wake up and go upstairs, see them and tell them how they had scared us and that they were going to tease us about how we were constantly scaredy cats. And make jokes about it as we would go to Taco Bell like always. But sadly, that is not what happened and what turned out to be my worst nightmare. When I first woke up that morning, I had no idea what happened. I woke up around 7 with a terrible toothache. So I called my dad, who is a dentist, and he asked what I should do. He told me to take Advil, so I did, and I went back to sleep. I was still out of it and still didn't know what happened. If I had known, I of course would have called 911 right away. I still carry so much regret and guilt for not knowing what had happened and not calling right away, even though I understand it wouldn't have changed anything, not even if the paramedics had been right outside the door. I was so frantic that morning and scared to death, not knowing what had happened. And when I made the 911 call, I couldn't even get out the words. And from then on, I don't remember a thing. It was like my brain wiped that whole memory. That was the worst day of my life. And I know it always will be. While I was still in shock, trying to process the fact that my friends were truly gone, I had been attacked by the public. I was grieving, numb, and unsure of what had happened was even real. And at the same time, I was getting flooded with death threats and hateful messages from people who did not know me at all or know the dynamic of our friendship. Social media made it so much worse, and strangers made up stories to entertain themselves. The media harassed not just me, but also my family. People showed up at our house. They called my phone, my parents' phones, other family members' phones, and we were chased while I was still trying to survive emotionally and grieve the loss of my friends. I hated and still hate that they are gone, but for some reason, I am still here and I got to live. I still think about this every day. Why me? Why did I get to live and not them? For the longest time, I could not even look at their families without feeling sick with guilt. I did not know what to say or what to do. I was terrified that my presence just made their pain worse, and I was still here when their kid, their siblings and their friends, their loved ones should have been here instead. After everything happened, I was afraid to go into my own backyard or alone in my house. I was scared that the person who did this would come for me next. I was always scared that the media would try to catch me at any moment of any day, even when I was just walking around my house. I made my parents close all the blinds during the day so no one could see me even in the slightest chance. I barely left the house, and when I did, I made sure I was never alone. I slept in my parents' room for almost a year. I made them double lock every door, set an alarm, and still check everywhere in the room just in case someone was hiding. And I still check my room every night before, and I double lock it. I have not slept through a single night since this happened. I constantly wake up in panics, terrified. Someone is breaking in, or someone is here to hurt me, or I'm about to lose someone else that I love. The fear never really leaves. For a long time, I could barely get out of bed, but one day I realized I have to live for them. They did not get the chance to keep living, but I do, and I will not take that for granted. So now every day I remind myself to live for them, and everything I do it with them in mind. I am still scared to go out in public, but I force myself to do things because I know that they would want me to keep living my life to the fullest. I am beyond blessed to still be here, and I refuse to take that for granted when they did not get a chance. Our house was not just a house, it was a home. It was where we laughed till we couldn't breathe, make meals, did crafts, binge watch reality shows, played games, and spent lazy days on the couch. It was movie nights, wine nights, morning debriefs, pranks, hot chocolate, cookies, and warmth. I will cherish those memories forever, and I will not let what happened erase how special our home was or how much those memories meant to me.
Bethany's words, delivered through a friend because the weight of speaking them herself was too much, remind us that survival comes with its own unbearable burden. She lived. She woke up the next morning, and she has to carry that knowledge forward into every day that follows. Her statement spoke of guilt that shouldn't be hers to carry, of questions that have no good answers, of a grief that exists alongside her own survival. She spoke for herself, but also for her housemates who could no longer speak, carrying their memory forward into a future they'll never see. For families, these statements represented something different. Not survival guilt, but the impossible task of condensing a lifetime of love into minutes of speech, of making a courtroom understand what 21 years of life meant, what futures were stolen, what absences will echo through every holiday and milestone that comes after.
Hello, I'd like to start by thanking the court for allowing me the time and opportunity to speak today. My name is Olivia, and I'm the big sister of Kaylee Gonzalez, and I was blessed to love Madison Mogan as a sister too. I'm not here today to speak in grief, I'm here to speak in truth. Because the truth is, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie were not yours to take. They were not yours to study, to stalk, or to silence. They were two pieces of a whole, the perfect yin and yang. They are everything that you could never be. Loved, accepted, vibrant, accomplished, brave, and powerful. Because the truth about Kaylee and Maddie is they would have been kind to you. If you had approached them in their everyday lives, they would have given you directions, thanked you for the compliment, or awkwardly giggled to make your own words less uncomfortable for you. In a world that rejected you, they would have shown mercy. Because the truth is, I'm angry. Every day I'm angry. I'm left shouting at the inside of my own head everything I wish I could say to you. The truth about me is when I heard the news, I didn't cry. I listened for them. I promised them I would, that I would fight for them, that I would show up no matter what it cost me. I swore I'd never let them feel alone. Because you see, I've always been their heavyweight. I've always been the one to fight the battles they didn't feel ready to fight themselves. All it ever took was a call, and they knew I would handle it for them, no matter the time, no matter the cost. They could wave their white flag because they knew I would never back down, not for them. And not even death could change that. Somewhere along the line, I started to think about what I would say to them if I was given just one last chance. If I could gather enough heartbreak or love or sacrifice or whatever it took to get just one message across. What would I say? Throughout this entire process, I've written my feelings down at every moment. My wishes, my love, my denial, my anger. And as one final act of love, I'd planned to read these thoughts, even jarring and discombobulating and not even making sense. Because for me, that was true love. As bare and as naked as it could be, not laced in pretty words or dressed for the occasion, but written through bleary eyes at 2 a.m. with clenched fists, angry at this reality. My true final act of love was to continue on without them, for them. That dream to read aloud my love to them, to bring meaning through pain, was the latest blow in realizing you don't deserve it. And Kaylee and Maddie don't need it. Kaylee and Maddie have always known my love, and they would never ask me to prove it by further victimizing myself to a defendant who has shown no guilt, no remorse, no apprehension. They would say to me, "Why would you give the satisfaction of showing vulnerability now? You promised you would never back down." And for that clarity, I'm thankful. I won't stand here and give you what you want. I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, and on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. Instead, I will call you what you are. Sociopath, psychopath, murderer. I will ask the questions that reverberate violently in my own head, so loudly that I can't think straight most any day. Some of these might be familiar, so sit up straight when I talk to you. How was your life right before you murdered my sisters? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your apartment? Please detail what you were thinking and feeling at this time. Why did you choose my sisters? Before making your move, did you approach my sisters? Detail what you were thinking and feeling. Before leaving their home, is there anything else you did? How does it feel to know the only thing you failed more miserably at than being a murderer is trying to be a rapper? Did you recently start shaving or manually pulling out your eyebrows? Why November 13th? Did you truly think your Amazon purchase was untraceable because you used a gift card? How do you find it enjoyable to stargaze with such a severe case of visual snow? Where is the murder weapon? The clothes you wore that night? What did you bring into the house with you? What was the second weapon you used on Kaylee? What were Kaylee's last words? Please describe in detail the level of anxiety you must have felt when you heard the Bearcat pull up to your family home on December 30th, 2022. Which do you regret more? Returning to the crime.
Kaylee's family spoke of her light, her ambition, her fierce love for those close to her. They described her plans, her dreams, the career she wanted to build, the life she was just beginning to create. They spoke of inside jokes that now have no one to share them with, of phone calls that will never come, of a presence that filled rooms and now leaves only absence. They spoke of the hole that her death creates, not just for them, but for everyone who knew her, for the world that will never benefit from the contribution she would have made.
Now it's Ben Mogan, Maddie Mogan's father.
I'm Benjamin Mogan. I'm Maddie's dad. And first I just want to say thanks to all the people that helped bring this all to a close. I know it's not the resolution that everyone, wanted, but I think that that everyone worked so hard, and we really appreciate all their efforts. It was such a hard thing to go through for everybody. Maddie was my only child that I ever had. She's the only great thing I ever really did, and the only thing I was really ever proud of. And I thought we would have the rest of our lives together to be together and to know each other, and I took for granted the times, she was in college, and I thought, oh, well, we'll have the rest of our lives to do all the stuff that we're supposed to do, and she was just about done. She actually earned all of her credits for her college degree, and Karen and Scotty and I got to go and get her diploma that she actually earned, and she served every bit of that. And but I thought that was going to be just the beginning of a long life together, and we never got that. Karen and Scotty did such a great job raising her after Karen and I split up, and I'm so thankful for Scotty and the role that he played in her life when I wasn't able to. But we got to spend a lot of great times together, Maddie and I. She was my favorite person to go to a concert with. We got to see some fun shows together, and I told her, if there's ever a show that you want to go to, let me know, and I'll get you tickets for you and your friend, or if we want to go together, we'll make it happen. And my favorite memory with her was when the Mac Miller show sold out here in Spokane, and everyone wanted tickets, no one could get them, and on the last day before the show, they did a radio thing, and I got 4 meet and greet tickets for Maddie and her friends and me to go and see the show, and that was her favorite artist at the time, was Mac Miller, and he's gone now too, and my little cousin Zach drove us all there that night, and he's gone too, tragically, and anyway, the last thing that she ever wrote to me was this Father's Day card, and I'm so glad I still have it. I'm just going to read what she said. It says, "Happy Father's Day. I hope you have the best day. I can't wait till we can hang out again soon. I'll be in Coeur d'Alene, 6:24 to 7:4. Hopefully we can find a time then. I loved your birthday card that you sent me, by the way. Maybe we can see a concert sometime soon. I'd love to see the gorge when it's not so smoky out. I hope you're doing well. I'm proud of how far you've come. Thank you for always encouraging me to do my best. Love you lots and lots. Love, Maddie May." She did encourage me to not just to do my best, but to live on. I went through a lot of issues with addiction and with substance abuse, and when I wasn't wanting to live anymore, she was what would keep me from just not caring anymore, and knowing that she was out there and that she was just such a beautiful person kept me alive a lot of rough moments, and I'm so glad that she was able to meet Jake. He was the only one that actually ever got to take her to the gorge. They went and saw Watershed together, and yeah, they had a heck of a time. I'm just glad she got to. That's a really special place for me, and she always wanted to work out there with me in the summer sometime. She never got to, but at least she got to see it once with Jake. He was such a great guy. He is such a great guy. And I really wanted to see what a future with them would have looked like. I'll never be able to replace her. I wrote a bunch of stuff. I just don't know what to say right now. I just miss her so much, and I just love her more than anything. And this shouldn't have happened. And a death sentence is one thing. When it's going to happen, and it's going to be all gentle and stuff. But life without parole, with a building full of people that all just want you to not be around anymore, and winking at every morning, not knowing if that's the day they're going to pull your card. I mean, it's not a very nice sentence either. So, I don't know. I just love you, Maddie, and I wish you were still here.
Madison's family shared memories that made her real again in a space that too often reduces people to evidence and legal arguments. They spoke of her humor, her kindness, the way she made others feel seen and valued. They described ordinary moments, breakfast conversations, and late-night talks that become extraordinary in their absence. They spoke of watching her grow, of being proud of the woman she was becoming, of having that growth stolen mid-sentence, mid-dream, mid-life. Xana's family spoke too, though their statement isn't in the footage we have available. They described her warmth, her dedication to her studies, her love for her family and for Ethan. They spoke of a future that was supposed to include graduations, weddings, grandchildren, a long life well lived. They spoke of plans interrupted, of potential unrealized, of love that now has nowhere to go except memory. Ethan's family shared their grief for a young man who was kind, athletic, devoted to his girlfriend, building a life with intention and purpose. They spoke of a son, a brother, a friend who lit up every room he entered. They spoke of the unfairness of a life cut short just as it was beginning. Each statement was different. Different tones, different approaches to grief. Some were angry, demanding answers and accountability. Some were sorrowful, focused on loss and absence. Some were both, cycling through emotions as grief does, never settling into one feeling, but instead experiencing everything at once. Because grief isn't uniform. It doesn't follow scripts or expectations. It's as individual as the person being mourned, shaped by the unique relationship between the living and the dead. Of all the moments in this case, one of the most powerful came when Dylan Mortensen finally spoke publicly. She had been silent for so long, and that silence had been filled with speculation, judgment, and unfair accusations from people who couldn't begin to understand her experience. The scrutiny Dylan faced was relentless and often cruel. Online communities dissected her every visible moment. Why didn't she call 911 immediately? Why did she lock her door instead of checking on her housemates? How could she have seen someone and not acted? The questions revealed more about the people asking them than about Dylan herself. They revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of trauma, of fear, of the way the human mind responds when faced with something it cannot process. Dylan had to live with knowledge that few people ever carry. She had heard sound that night. She had seen someone. And in that moment, frozen in terror, her brain had chosen survival through stillness. The freeze response isn't conscious. It's not a choice in any meaningful sense. It's the nervous system taking over, recognizing that movement might attract attention, that confrontation might mean death, that staying still and quiet might be the only way to survive. Dylan's decision to speak at the sentencing wasn't about defending herself or explaining her actions that night. It was about something more fundamental, reclaiming her own voice in a story where she'd been assigned a role she never asked for. It took extraordinary courage to stand before a courtroom and a watching world to share what she'd been carrying alone.
Next is Dylan Mortensen. We're asking for some accommodations for Ms. Mortensen and that she be allowed to sit in my seat.
Sure. Dylan, just take your time, all right?
Sorry. Thank you, Your Honor. What happened that night changed everything. Because of him, four beautiful, genuine, compassionate people were taken from this world for no reason. He didn't just take their lives. He took the light they carried it into every room. He took away how they made everyone feel safe, loved, and full of joy. He took away the ability for me to tell them that I love them and that I'm so proud of them. He took away who they were becoming and the futures they were going to have. He took away birthdays, graduations, celebrations, and all the memories that we were supposed to make. All of it is gone. And all the people who loved them are just left to carry that weight forever. He didn't just take them from the world. He took them from me, my friends, my people who felt like my home, the people I looked up to and adored more than anyone. He took away my ability to trust the world around me. What he did shattered me in places I didn't know could break. I was barely 19 when he did this. We had just celebrated my birthday at the end of September. I should have been figuring out who I was. I should have been having the college experience and starting to establish my future. Instead, I was forced to learn how to survive the unimaginable. I couldn't be alone. I had to sleep in my mom's bed because I was too terrified to close my eyes. Terrified that if I blinked, someone might be there. I made escape plans everywhere I went. If something happens, how do I get out? What can I use to defend myself? Who can help? And then there are the panic attacks. The kind that slam into me like a tsunami out of nowhere. I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking. All I can do is scream because the emotional pain and the grief is too much to handle. My chest feels like it's caving in. Sometimes I drop to the floor with my heart racing, convinced something is very wrong. It's far beyond anxiety. It's my body reliving everything over and over again. My nervous system never got the message that it is over, and it won't let me forget what he did to them. People call me strong. They say I'm a survivor, but they don't see what my new reality looks like. They don't see the panic attacks, the hypervigilance, the exhaustion, the way I scan every room I enter, the way I flinch at sudden sounds. They don't know how heavy it is to carry so much pain and still be expected to keep going, and that's because of him. He stole parts of me I may never get back. He took the version of me who didn't constantly ask, what if it happens again? What if next time I don't survive? He may have shattered parts of me, but I'm still putting myself back together. Piece by piece, I'm learning how to live in this new version of life. It is not easy. It hurts, but I'm still trying. Still trying, and I'm not trying just for me. I'm trying for them, my friends. About a year ago, I had a dream about them. I got to say goodbye. I told them I won't be able to see you again, so I need to tell you goodbye. They all kept asking why, and all I could say was, I can't tell you, but I have to. When I woke up, I felt shattered and heartbroken, but also strangely grateful. Like maybe in some way that dream gave us the goodbye we never got. Still, no dream can replace them, and no goodbye will ever feel finished. He is a hollow vessel, something less than human. A body without empathy, without remorse. He chose destruction. He chose evil. He feels nothing. He tried to take everything from me. My friends, my safety, my identity, my future. He took their lives, but I will continue trying to be like them, to make them proud. Living is how I honor them. Speaking today is to help me find some sort of justice for them. And I will never let him take that from me. He may have taken so much from me, but he will never get to take my voice. He will never take the memories I had with them. He will never erase the love we shared, the laughs we had, or the way they made me feel seen and whole. Those things are mine. They are sacred, and he will never touch them. I get to feel sadness. I get to feel rage. I get to feel joy even when it's hard. I get to feel love even when it hurts. I get to live. And while I will still live with this pain, at least I get to live my life. He will stay here, empty, forgotten, and powerless.
Joan, thank you so much for your courage.
Listen to the strength required to do what she just did. To be vulnerable in public. To acknowledge trauma while refusing to let it define her entirely. To stand in a courtroom where every word would be analyzed, every emotion scrutinized, and speak her truth anyway. Dylan has to live with the knowledge that she was in that house, that she heard things she couldn't contextualize at the time, that she saw someone and didn't immediately understand what she was seeing, that she survived when others didn't. She has to live with questions that have no good answers. What if she had called sooner? What if she had checked on her friends? The rational mind knows that these questions aren't fair, that she did nothing wrong, that she responded exactly as her traumatized brain was designed to respond. But trauma doesn't care about rationality. And she's had to do that while facing public scrutiny that most of us will never experience. Her name became a search term. Her image was shared and discussed. Strangers created narratives about her motives, her character, her involvement, none of which had any basis in fact, but all of which had the power to wound. Her statement reminded everyone that this case has layers of tragedy beyond the 4 lives lost. The survivors carry wounds that aren't visible but are no less real. They carry grief for friends they couldn't save. They carry guilt that shouldn't be theirs. They carry the weight of public judgment for actions taken in moments when the only thing that mattered was staying alive. And then came the sentencing itself, the moment where legal proceedings transform into something final, where years of investigation and months of trial culminate in words that will define the rest of someone's life. Sentencing isn't really an ending. For the families of victims, it doesn't bring anyone back. For the defendant, it's the beginning of a new reality. For the survivors and the community, it's a marker, a point where one chapter closes and another begins, though neither feels like closure in any satisfying sense.
All right, does the defense have evidence to present today?
No evidence.
All right. Does the defense wish to make argument today?
Runner, we do not wish to make arguments. Mr. Kohberger, along with his legal team, is prepared for the court to enter judgment.
All right, Mr. Kohberger, you have an opportunity to make a statement if you wish to. I take it you are declining.
I respectfully decline.
Well. Please. All right, let me start this morning by acknowledging and thanking those that have come here today in support of their loved ones, and I appreciate your courage and your strength. And I hope that you are able to move on as best as possible. Thank counsel for the professionalism that they've exhibited throughout this case. It has been my great honor to preside in this case and to help bring, to the extent possible, some resolution and hopefully justice to this case. During the quiet morning hours of November 13, 2022, a faceless coward breached the tranquility of 6 beautiful young people and senselessly slaughtered them, 4 of them. Who committed this unspeakable evil was unknown for several weeks, but due to the killer's incompetence and outstanding police work by numerous local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies, the person that slithered through that sliding glass door at 1122 King Road now stands before the world and this court unmasked. This unfathomable and senseless act of evil has caused immeasurable pain and loss. No parent should ever have to bury their child. This is the greatest tragedy that can be inflicted upon a person. Parents who took their children to college in a truck filled with moving boxes had to bring them home in hearses lined with coffins. The loss this killer inflicted was not just the death of these people's children, siblings, grandchildren, as we've heard today. It has ripped a hole in their soul, destroying a special part of their very essence. Any person who is a parent defines themselves foremost as such. It is their existence and purpose of being. And it has been stolen from these parents. None of us have experienced the loss these victims have in the unspeakable way that they have. And therefore, none of us can, nor should we, question the way in which they have handled their loss. Whether that be in private mourning, removed as far as possible from this media circus, or in front of a camera demanding retribution with the loudest megaphone. I've listened intently to the stories and pain that have been shared today, with great awe at the courage and resilience of the surviving family members of those wonderful children. I've listened also to the surviving roommates, both in person and through their friends. And I can't think of how, frankly, courageous they have been despite the hell that they have faced by uncaring people who have come up with all kinds of crazy theories about two kids simply being kids. The parents, siblings, and other family members who have spoken today are designated as victims in our legal system. But going forward, I hope that they can shed that label, as it gives too much power to the evil that condemned them to that role. They are and should be known as survivors, fighters, and foremost as witnesses to the tremendous lives of value and unbounded promise of these four young people. But those speaking today and those who did not speak, but who carry this same burden, this same loss, now carry forward the memories of these now perpetually young people, these forever children. These survivors carry the responsibility of ensuring that the voices of these children, Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, are never forgotten, and the positive impacts that they have had on so many lives are never minimized, and that the love they shared, the light that they shined onto others, is forever celebrated. As we sit here today, this case is ending, and we are now certain who committed these unspeakable acts of evil, but we don't know, and what we may never know is why. I share the desire expressed by others to understand the why. But upon reflection, it seems to me, and this is just my own opinion, that by continuing to focus on why, we continue to give Mr. Kohberger relevance. We give him agency and we give him power. The need to know what is inherently not understandable makes us dependent upon the defendant to provide us with a reason, and that gives him the spotlight, the attention, and the power he appears to crave. Yet even if I could force him to speak, which legally I cannot, how could anyone ever be assured that what he speaks is the truth? Do we really believe, after all of this, he's capable of speaking the truth or of giving up something of himself to help the very people whose lives he destroyed? Rather, I suspect the so-called reason would be dished out in enticing, self-serving, and aggrandizing, untruthful bits, leaving people wanting more information, more insight, and thus enhancing even further the power he seeks to hold. Even if we could get truthful insight into his why, I suspect it would not in any way quench one's thirst for actually understanding why in the first instance.
The courtroom was heavy with the weight of everything that had led to this moment. Months of evidence, days of testimony, hours of deliberation, and now, words that would seal the outcome. Bryan Kohberger was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on each count of first-degree murder. the sentences to run consecutively. The death penalty, which the prosecution had initially sought, was ultimately not pursued. For some families, this was justice. The assurance that the person responsible would never walk free, would never have the opportunity to harm anyone else, would spend every remaining day of his life behind bars. For others, it felt insufficient, impossible to balance against the magnitude of what was taken. How do you measure justice for 4 stolen lives? How do you quantify the right punishment for futures that will never unfold, for potential that will never be realized, for love that was cut short? And that's the truth about these moments. They don't heal. They don't restore. They don't make anything right again. They simply mark the point where society has done what it can do, where the legal system has reached its conclusion, and everyone must figure out how to move forward from there. The families don't get their children back. The survivors don't get to undo what happened. The community doesn't get to return to the sense of safety it once had. All that remains is the slow, painful work of learning to live in a world irrevocably changed. This case will continue to be analyzed, debated, and discussed. New details may emerge as appeals move forward. Legal scholars will examine the precedents set. True crime enthusiasts will continue to debate the evidence. But beneath all of that are fundamental truths that shouldn't be lost in the noise. For young people, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin had their futures stolen from them. They were 20 and 21 years old at the beginning of their adult lives, full of plans and dreams and possibilities. They had families who loved them, friends who cherished them, futures that should have included decades of growth, change, love, achievement, and all the ordinary, extraordinary moments that make up a life well lived. Kaylee should be working in her chosen field, maybe starting a family, definitely still lighting up every room she entered. Madison should be pursuing her passions, building relationships, creating the life she'd been planning. Xana should be graduating, starting her career, building a future with someone she loved. Ethan should be moving forward with his life, his athletics, his education, all the paths that were open to him. Instead, they're frozen in time, remembered, but never able to grow into who they would have become. And that's perhaps the cruelest aspect. It doesn't just take a life as it exists in that moment. It takes all the future moments too. All the growth, all the change, all the potential. 2 survivors, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, must carry the weight of that night forward into every day that follows, navigating trauma, survivor's guilt, and public scrutiny that no one should have to bear. They have to find a way to keep living while honoring the friends who can't. Families must learn to live with absences that never stop aching, with milestones that will never be celebrated, with questions that may never have satisfying answers. They have to figure out how to be happy again while carrying permanent grief. And a community must reconcile with the fact that the unthinkable happened in their quiet college town, that safety is more fragile than anyone wants to believe. This case asks something of us as observers. It asks us to see beyond headlines and legal proceedings, to recognize the humanity in every person affected, to understand that trauma doesn't follow our expectations or timelines, to resist the urge to create simple narratives from complex tragedies. What happened on King Road on November 13th, 2022 can't be undone. The investigation that followed can't bring anyone back. The trial and sentencing can't restore what was lost. But we can choose how we engage with these stories. We can choose to honor the victims by remembering them as people, not just names in a case file. We can choose to extend compassion to survivors navigating impossible burdens. We can choose empathy over judgment, understanding over speculation, respect over sensationalism. Because these aren't just stories, they're lives, and the way we tell them matters. If this story made you think differently about how we tell true crime stories, if it reminded you that behind every case are real people navigating real pain, then Dark Trail Files is doing what it's meant to do. We don't chase clicks. We don't sensationalize. We examine cases with the gravity and respect they deserve. Subscribe and join us as we continue to explore the human moments within the headlines. Because some stories demand more than our attention. They demand our empathy. This is Dark Trail Files, where we follow the trails others rush past.